The pain, hurt, and frustration we're seeing in Minneapolis and throughout the country, as well as in the city of Milwaukee, no stranger to what's happening here. Dr. Koo Smith of Blacksmith Psychological Consultative Services is joining us now live, and we appreciate you making an effort to be here. You were with us Friday as a lot of this was unfolding, and you know, there is a saying that you have to find the root of a problem to find a solution. Do you think and hope we know the root of the problem?
Yes, I think we know the root of the problem. The question is, do we have the courage to actually fix it? And that's kind of how we ended our last conversation on that Friday evening. When we talk about the levels of income inequality, the level of economic castration that happens to certain communities, and this is not just the African-American community, but we look at the lower SES consistent throughout the United States. The reason why this pandemic is so horrific is because we're seeing people that have checks for a month and 2 months and are in absolute economic despair. And so when you have that type of ability, you start to see the worst of humankind, the worst of mankind. So we're not really looking at just what we're dealing with right now. You talk about the real problem. The real problem comes, can we really sustain the society the way that we have it right now?
So when we look for a solution, the solution always seems to have to start at home. Where do we begin?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to start at home, because when we start to see what's going on, our city, our nation cannot sustain this type of loss that's going on a daily basis, specifically when you combine it with the pandemic. So, yeah, we can tell people to be peaceful. We can tell people to be at rest. But the question is, then what do we do? If we condone these riotous uprisings, and some of these things are absolutely ridiculous, I say, OK, let's stop it. But we also have to condone the whole system that creates these situations in the first part.
So where do you begin then? Which conversation would you like to see to happen right now? We saw the mayor today. We saw the police chief. We've seen religious leaders come forward to say, look, we understand the anger, the frustration. They too are angry and frustrated by what happened to George Floyd. So how do you then, bring all that energy to bring change?
Well, I think what we have to do first is be honest. And I think, with all due respect, when people hear individuals talk, I don't think they really believe them. So even when they seem sincere and apologetic, they don't say anything. I mean, I haven't heard anybody talk about Derek Williams. He died in the back of a police squad car here in Milwaukee. And so when you see these things, it makes people think that they're this genuine. And I can tell you this for a fact. I've been a part of the protests. I've been a part of the marches. I've been a part of the peaceful ones, and a part of a group who tried to keep the peace at night. It's very, very disingenuous what some of the people were saying. I heard on the radio last night with the fires that they say, hey, we're not coming out. Let them burn themselves down. I, with a group of a few other people, literally were putting out a fire behind the back of Milwaukee Health Services with water bottles that certain people were coming and bringing. And so to your point with that, we have to just be honest with each other. And what we have to recognize is that we're all on the same team. So oftentimes we find ourselves as combatants, but there's no way that you can be friends if there's no trust, and there can be no trust if there's no real communication. So you say, where do we start? We have to come and sit down. When these young people are doing this, I said, okay, you're doing this, but what are your demands? What do you want? What will make you stop? And I don't think anybody knows that. So what we have to do is we all have to come to the table with people who want to come and win agree and say, what is it going to do? And that's where we get our immediate goals, we get short-term goals, and we get long-term goals.
Yeah. Build trust is a key phrase there, and we will continue to have this conversation with you as this story continues to develop. So, Dr. Smith, we appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.